Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is our review for Kiss Me Cat, and with me today, as always, because it's a cat themed one of course, is my good friend Matt Hunter. Say hi.
Meow.
I said hi, not meow. So first things first, this is Kiss Me Cat, released on the 21st of February 1953. It's the 672nd in the series, and it's directed by Chuck Jones. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Gone Collection Volume 4 DVD set, and on the Platinum Collection Volume 1 Blu-ray or DVD set, depending on what you prefer. And that set also has all of the Mark Antony and Pussyfoot shorts all in a row, so that's pretty handy for those who are fans of these characters. Like we are, right?
Yeah, I don't think Chuck Jones really intended them to be a long-running series. There weren't that many of them. I think only 4 or 5 of them. And this one, anyway, is very much a companion piece to the first one, which is Feed the Kitty. You were telling me kind of a sense of continuity a little bit? Like,
yeah.
We now already know these characters, so we don't have to reintroduce them. And there's some difference to the setting. You're still in a suburban house in the 50s, but in Feed the Kitty, it was obviously during an afternoon where the housewife was doing her chores and doing the cooking. This one takes place at night. And so the man of the house is home, and he's the one who threatens to throw Pussyfoot out if Pussyfoot doesn't catch mice. And of course, that leads to our plot.
And in case you haven't seen this one, by the way, because I can't show you this cartoon in full on YouTube because it will just get taken down. It's a copyrighted short. Warner Brothers does not want this cartoon on here, so buy one of those sets and Warner Brothers can't dictate anything further to you, of course. But in terms of what happens though, well, horrified when he hears his master is threatening to get rid of Pussyfoot unless the kitten starts catching mice, Mark Antony tries to tutor Pussyfoot in proper feline behavior. And of course we all know that means catching mice. Nothing complicated, and that's fine. These are only 6 or so minute shorts, and that's fine. So, in terms of trivia, the title itself is a play on the very popular 1948 play called Kiss Me Kate, and that in turn was made into a film that was released later in 1953 called, well, it's the same name, Kiss Me Kate, and it was in 3D too, which I was a bit surprised. You wouldn't think a musical would have been done in 3D, but it's a 3D craze, so I guess everything was in 3D.
I have never seen that movie. I've heard it's pretty good. I've just never seen it, but I know that's the pun that they were going for with the title here. That's pretty funny. And then this cartoon, I just wanted to point out, has some really amazing backgrounds. And part of that is because now we're into the Maurice Noble era of Chuck Jones's cartoons, where everything he did, he just plussed with the layouts. And this one, he's not going too abstract here. It's still a 1950s suburban house, but if you look at what he does with lighting, like when they show an exterior shot with the light from the house shining on the lawn, and then you get, at one point, there's a table that's got a kind of a weird shape to it, and it's just amazing. And then you look at who did the backgrounds for it. It was Phil DeGard. At one point, Mark Antony going into the closet with that ballerina get up. And on the wall, you pointed this out to me, that there's a painting that it looks like a Pablo Picasso painting. I've always noticed that, but what I didn't notice is the signature on it, which is Pablo DeGardo. It's DeGard putting his little signature on there, kind of like occasionally you'd see Paul Julian work his name into the Chris Freeling cartoons. But there you go. That's a gag that we just noticed looking at the HD print that I had never seen. So.
Exactly, and that's why everything has to be in HD, because if you didn't notice that joke, the whole cartoon would have been just not worth watching, clearly.
I mean, heck with the rest of the cartoon, you got to look for the Easter egg, yeah, but...
Exactly, that's the only good bit in this whole cartoon. No, I'm kidding, of course, I'm kidding. But yeah, Maurice Noble now entering the scene is great. I really enjoy his works.
Just the composition of it, like what he does with the houseplant. There's an ivy on the windowsill there, and you see it from a couple of different angles, and you'd think, who cares about the background, put a house plant there, but he added that little flourish, and I think that's fun. And it's not near as abstract as, say, Witch Hazel's house in Broomstick Bunny, where he just goes completely all out with flat shapes and things that are out of order and abstract. It's not really that abstract here. It's just cool looking.
It functions as a background should, really. But You mentioned before that, yeah, this is another Mark Antony Pussyfoot short, and this is, of course, the second one. The cat is actually referred to by that name for the first time by the wife, voiced by Bea Benaderet. You don't actually hear the name Pussyfoot in the Feed the Kitty, but you hear it here for the first time, so I guess they gave the name here. The interesting thing is, it's very rare in Looney Tunes shorts to have some sort of a continuity. So here you got continuity, where Feed the Kitty is kind of like a pilot TV episode of sorts, and this is like the second episode. But thankfully, it's done in such a way that you don't need to see Feed the Kitty to enjoy this one, and then that's why this works so well. I can only think of one other time of there being continuity, and that's, of course, the Cecil Turtle trilogy, where Bugs references the first race in the second short. Can you think of any other examples? I really can't.
No, you were talking about that. I was thinking, I don't really recall any that directly reference a previous cartoon, because, of course, with these, they were designed to be run in movie theaters once, and you'd see a 6-minute cartoon one time, and then they just assumed that was it. Nobody ever dreamed that we would be seeing these in high definition in our own homes years and years on. Nobody thought that. But it makes it all the more amazing with all these cartoons that they put so much effort into them. Particularly, I'm just watching just on mute right now, but the expressions that Chuck Jones and his animators are putting in here, it's how did they not know that this stuff was going to last forever? They put so much effort into it, into something seemingly inconsequential. I mean, it's a cat and dog cartoon, but they put so much subtlety into this.
I know Jerry Beck told me that a lot of these animators and directors and stuff, they just had a job to do. You know, they come in, they clock in, they do the job, and they go home. And yet, by watching these cartoons, you wouldn't think that was the case. You would think that they are proud of it. I'm not doubting Jerry here. I mean, I agree with him. This is, for a lot of them, it's like a job, right? But you wouldn't know it, though, by watching a short like this one. And you're watching it on mute as well. I'm sure you would agree that you can follow this cartoon so easily without any sound whatsoever.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the best of Chuck Jones cartoons. And he would talk about that. He would say the difference between animation and illustrated radio, which is what he called stuff like Hanna-Barbera cartoons that were made for TV and limited animation. But Jones was really big on full animation that told the story without you having to hear any dialogue or hear or anything. And at his best, I mean, some of his later cartoons will find he could be just as talky as any of them. But this one in particular is a good example of what he was talking about, where turn off the sound and you completely understand what's going on. You can understand even the moods of the characters. You can understand their motivation. You can understand the plot, all of it. You know, the scene where Mark Antony is standing in a corner and he's got Pussyfoot in his one hand and he's kind of stroking his head and then he gets an idea. That's just beautiful. You don't have to. It's just, wow. You know?
Exactly. And you don't even have to hear the other characters. You can get an idea of what's going on, about why there's now the sudden urge for Pussy to need to capture this mouse, which we'll talk about in a moment, because I just like that little mouse for some reason.
I was going to say that the mouse in this cartoon is a very different kind of mouse than Chuck Jones had been doing before. I mean, compare that to Hubie and Bertie, it's like night and day. It's more stylized. It's a different look for a mouse than he had been drawing in the past, and certainly different from Sniffles.
Yeah, and different from the recent short from 1952, where the lovey-dovey one that he did. Those mice look different as well, but even there had a Hubie and Bertie type design in the beginning with the moving mice and all that. So nice to see Chuck mix things up a little bit, which is good. Perfect design for this short, I have to say. When the cartoon opens, right, I just love how really cute it is, and it just establishes the relationship straight away, and that's why this works. Even if you haven't seen Feed the Kitty, you can immediately see these two have a bond where one's a kitten, just a little child, little baby, and Mark is like this overprotective guardian for this kitten. And the animation, the posing, superb. You can freeze frame anything here, and it's just amazing to look at.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it again, just the way that they do Pussyfoot's fur, where Mark Antony blows on him to straighten his fur out and everything. I'm just like, that's really subtle, but that's really good. Like, it's really good animation. And the Mark Antony and Pussyfoot in general, these don't really necessarily feel like Warner Brothers. They're not Disney, but they're not the typical slapstick Warner Brothers stuff either. It's Chuck Jones doing something sweet. And I think there's a certain charm to that.
And that's why this is uniquely Chuck Jones. This is him. This is him coming full circle from his initial cutesy stuff to all the wonderful timing and posing he would learn over the years doing other series like Bugs Bunny and so on.
Yeah, compare this to The Night Watchman, which was his first credited director cartoon. And that's also cats and mice in a kitchen and the whole thing, but they're night and day. Compare that to this one, and it's like, wow, is this the same guy?
Oh, exactly. It's the same sort of premise with a cat not being able to catch mice in a different way, of course.
Right.
But
this is so much better than that. It's like, is this the same director? And it is.
Yeah, exactly. And then the premise is set up immediately. We hear Mel Blanc doing Mel Blanc's voice. This is one of those times where this is like just his natural voice. Maybe acting it up a little bit, but that's basically his voice right there. And he just sets it up saying, nah, the cats need to catch mice. We've got a mouse problem. If he doesn't catch mice, that's it, right? And we see poor Anthony about to cry as well. It's just so good.
And of course, Pussyfoot is a little kitten. He doesn't really know how to catch mice. In fact, he lets mice use him as a grocery cart.
Yes.
Hooks up a little wagon to him and drives him like a horse.
Oh, exactly, like a little chariot
steal
thingy.
from the pantry. And meanwhile, Mark Anthony's sitting there with a chalkboard. He draws a really crudely drawn mouse, and he tries to show that Pussyfoot's supposed to chase the mouse. And Pussyfoot just sits there with a blank stare and puts his tongue out. That's what kittens do. They just sit there and look cute. That's all they know how to do.
Exactly. And there's even that moment you mentioned the tongue bit. There's that subtle moment which you didn't even have to do this, but hey, I'm glad he did. And that's when Mark Anthony puts the tongue back in Pussyfoot's mouth. Just the little touches. Just it's like, okay, pay attention, right? And we knew that Mark Anthony was a decent artist. He's got some skill, and he knows how to write as well. He can't talk, but he can definitely write, which is... And it's such a well-designed piece of storytelling with that dialogue. I would say anyone who is interested in making their own animated short or wants to learn how to animate and how to tell a story with that dialogue, just watch that one scene. That is probably a great example of how you can tell a story through strong poses and movement and so on.
Not a lick of dialogue.
I do like when he does all his drawing on the blackboard, how he's got the added touch where he goes, ding! He turns over to show the thing cats hate mice, but then Pussyfoot's gone straight away, back on the chariot. So kind of like in a rule of three kind of thing. It's pretty good.
And then there's a great bit where Mark Anthony is trying to show Pussyfoot how to catch a mouse, and then finally he just decides, well, fine, I'll catch one myself. And he sets a trap, a jack-in-the-box, and he puts cheese on a jack-in-the-box, and when the mouse goes to grab the cheese, of course, the jack-in-the-box pops out and scares him to death. But then the payoff is Mark Anthony puts the mouse's tail in Pussyfoot's mouth and then makes an expression on his face like, hey, look, I caught this mouse. And then he goes to try to show the owner that hey, Pussyfoot caught a mouse. We get to see that
the chariot, once again.
Once again, we've turned Pussyfoot into a little pony driving a grocery cart. And it's like, so funny.
With the wonderful music cue as well. It's just such a great cue that was used in that bit. It's fantastic. And it leads to probably my favorite bit, and I don't know if it's your favorite bit or not, but it's just like Mark Anthony's trying to figure out something very quick, similar to what he did in Feed the Kitty. He'll be like, uh-oh, I got to figure something quick. And what does he do? He just becomes a ballet dancer. I mean, of all things, why that? And I don't know, did this inspire Chuck to eventually do What's Opera Doc with all the wonderful ballet? I don't know.
I don't know, but he takes a lampshade and he makes it into a ballerina's tutu. And then he knows the owner's going to swat him anyway, so he just gives him a cute little look. What else am I going to do?
Exactly. And then, the owner's not too happy. The owner gets pissed as the short goes on with his dog. But he's a smart dog.
We'll see him again in one of my favorite Warner Brothers cartoons of all time called Feline Frame Up. And that one throws Claude Cat into the mix. And it's just hysterical because the master, Mark Anthony's plots against Claude keep working the master into it, and he just completely loses his mind.
I like the other bit where Mark Antony needs to hide the fact of what is happening with Pussyfoot, and he puts his hands over the master's head, and he's like, "Oh, don't tell me," and he does the whole guess who with what relatives, and of course, what he ends up kissing the dog.
Alda, come all the way from Duluth, Grandma. What? You again?
That was just fantastic, and I gotta say, things do turn a little bit sinister in the last act, at least briefly. It sort of comes across as really sinister when it's really not. But how he got the mouse now, he's going to kidnap Pussyfoot, the hit napper, and he has to throw a second note as well.
Kind of shades of one that you did a review of not long ago, one of the Bob Clampett cartoons, where the mice in the kitchen kidnap the kitten. We the animals squeak.
I like the fact that Chuck at least tones it down a little bit to make sure it's like, it's okay. Pussyfoot's all right. He's just having some milk, and he just hits this thing and makes all these cat noises as though it's being tortured or something. But
yeah.
It is kind of similar to the gag of Feed the Kitty, where Mark thinks that the kitten's being pulverized in the kitchen when the mistress is making cookies, right? So here he's thinking Pussyfoot's getting tortured and he's in kind of despair, but wow. But what did you think of the punchline at the end with the mirror bit? He makes a scowl again, and the mirror enhances the cat. It's like, hey, come and see the new cat.
Yeah, that drawing or painting, I guess it is, with Pussyfoot's, I think it's a painting actually, with Pussyfoot, his face in the mouse hole. I'm trying to pause it and see, but that's just beautiful posing.
And we see at the very end, it was actually a family of mice that needs to be kicked out, which is a nice way to end things there. And it just ends, of course, but that's okay. And now my good friend John wanted to give his thoughts on this short as well. So take it away, John.
Hello, it's me again, John, and I'm gonna give my thoughts on Kiss Me Cat, the second Mark Antony and Pussyfoot short. So the first time I watched this cartoon was way back in 2018, 2019, because it was among the few Warner cartoons I hadn't watched, because at the time I was revisiting Looney Tunes and there were a lot of shorts that I hadn't seen, and this was among many of them, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's a pretty good second cartoon for both characters. About the positive things about this cartoon is obviously the animation. Chuck Jones' team always had pretty great animation, and this short also has pretty good example. From characters' reactions and movements, it's very fluid and vivid, and it's something that I really enjoy when rewatching it. Another part that I really like are two gags in the short. The first one is halfway through the cartoon where Mark Antony's like already given up because Pussyfoot hasn't learned anything on catching mice. And a moment, Pussyfoot gets kidnapped by the mouse, who tricks it to enter into the mouse hole, and the mouse sends a note to Mark Antony saying that he has Pussyfoot kidnapped and he won't give her back unless he gets food. And you see Mark Antony super worried going to get cheese and putting the cheese on the mouse hole, and then the owner comes and is like, what the? And I really love that scene. And another one is the ending of the short, where Mark Antony finally figures out a way to get rid of the mice and comes with the magnifying glass. And I love both shots of Mark Antony and Pussyfoot with the magnifying glass. Those are possibly the funniest scenes in the short, especially if you pause them. I really like that. But yeah, overall a pretty good second short. And that's all that I got to say for this cartoon. And I'll see you in the next review. So take care and goodbye.
But in terms of rating, I got to give this one about, see, it's not a go too short. I do prefer the one with Court Cat, one that you love. And I like Feed the Kitty as well, maybe that little bit better. But this one gets a solid 8.5, I think, out of 10.
That's what I was going to go with it, like an 8.5 out of 10. It's a masterfully done cartoon. I can't find a single thing wrong with it. It's just that, the next one is with Claude, I think is funnier. And I think the first one is just so iconic that who hasn't seen that one? So this is kind of like, oh, it's another Mark Antony and Pussyfoot cartoon. And I think a lot of people, when they see it, they're like, oh, I don't think I've seen this before. I've seen these characters, but I don't remember this one. So, I'd say 8.5 for sure.
I think that's a fair score. And it's a great cartoon. If it's on, definitely watch it. And if you need to see it again, YouTube will not have it unless Warner's randomly decides, yeah, you know what, you guys can post it, which they will never do. But anyway, that's
Or you
another
can go
topic.
to Amazon or something and go buy the DVD and Blu-ray, and you can enjoy it that way anytime you want.
And you own it. And just make sure you use my link, because that helps out the channel, of course. That's an encryption. But
Yeah.
in any case, that'll do it for this one. Thanks you so much for watching, guys. And until next time, take care.
Well, I'll be... Bye. I always said that cat had the makings of a champion mouser. Yeah.